Some of you have been wrestling with things that are too heavy for you to carry. You're losing sleep, you're losing peace, you're losing joy because you're trying to fix what only God can fix. Let me tell you something. You were never meant to do it all. You were never meant to figure it all out. You were never meant to hold on so tight that your hands are too full to receive the blessing that's coming your way. When life gets tough, when people walk away, when doors slam shut in your face, that's not the time to break down. That's the time to let go and let God handle it. See, faith is not about having all the answers. It's about knowing who has the answers. Faith is when you're standing in the middle of uncertainty, but you still have peace. Faith is when the storm is raging, but you still lift your hands and say, God, I trust you. Some of you have been praying, but you're still worrying. You're asking God to move, but you're still trying to control things. Let go. Stop trying to do God's job. He doesn't need your help. He needs your trust. Because when you release it into His hands, you release yourself from the burden. When you let God handle it, you position yourself for a breakthrough. I don't know what battle you're facing today, but I do know this. God has already gone before you. He has already made a way. He has already lined up the victory. So stop stressing, stop fighting, stop doubting. Let God handle it. You've been carrying something for too long. You've been holding on to pain, stress, and frustration, acting like it's your responsibility to figure everything out. You wake up thinking about it, go through your day with it weighing on your shoulders, and lay down at night still wrestling with it. But let me tell you something, God never meant for you to carry all that weight. There comes a time when you have to recognize that some battles are not yours to fight. Some burdens are not yours to bear. You've been running yourself into the ground, trying to make everything work, trying to fix every problem, trying to hold everything together. But it's breaking you. And the reason you feel tired, the reason you feel drained, the reason you feel like you're running on empty is because you're holding on to something that God has been telling you to let go of. See, we get so used to carrying things that we start believing it's normal. We think it's just life, just how things are, just how it has to be. But God never called you to live exhausted. He never called you to walk around with the weight of the world on your shoulders. He said, cast your cares on me because I care for you. But instead of releasing them, we clutch onto them as if worrying about it will somehow fix it. Some of you have been trying to control things that are beyond your power. You've been stressing over situations that only God can change. You've been replaying mistakes, regrets, and past failures, dragging them behind you like a heavy chain. But hear me when I say this, it's time to let it go. It's time to free yourself from the pressure of trying to be strong all the time. It's time to stop pretending like you have it all together. It's time to drop the weight and let God handle it. Think about it. What has worrying ever changed? What has overthinking ever fixed? What has stressing ever solved? Nothing. All it does is rob you of your peace, your strength, and your joy. But when you release the burden, when you say, God, I can do this on my own, that's when the weight lifts. That's when peace enters. That's when strength returns. Maybe you've been holding on to disappointment. Maybe you've been holding on to fear. Maybe you've been holding on to guilt. Whatever it is, I want you to understand this. God is bigger than anything you're facing. He's greater than your struggles. And if you would just release it, if you would just take your hands off of it, if you would just surrender it, you would see that He has already worked it out. Stop exhausting yourself trying to control what's out of your hands. Stop trying to be the answer when God is the answer. Stop carrying what you were never meant to carry. Release the burden and let God handle it. We live in a world that demands everything right now. We want answers immediately, we want success overnight, and we want breakthroughs without delay. And when things don't happen as quickly as we expect, we get frustrated. We start questioning, doubting, and wondering if God even heard us. But let me remind you, God's timing is perfect. It may not align with your schedule, it may not match your expectations, and it may not happen when you want it to. But when God moves, He moves at the right time. And if He is making you wait, it's because there is a purpose in the waiting. Some of you have been praying for something, and it feels like nothing is changing. You've been asking for doors to open, but they remain closed. You've been believing for a miracle, but it hasn't come. And now, frustration is creeping in. Doubt is whispering in your ear. Fear is telling you that maybe it's never going to happen. But listen to me. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean God isn't working behind the scenes. You see, God doesn't operate on our clocks. He is not limited by deadlines. He is not rushed by pressure. And when He moves, He does it in a way that not only answers your prayers, but also strengthens your faith. Think about Joseph. God gave him a dream, but instead of walking straight into his destiny, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and locked in prison. From the outside, it looked like his life was moving in the wrong direction. But what seemed like delays were actually part of God's divine process. Every step, every setback, every moment of waiting was preparing him for the position God had ordained for him. That's what you need to understand. God is preparing you for what He has promised you. If He gave it to you too soon, you wouldn't be ready for it. If He opened the door before the right time, you wouldn't have the strength to walk through it. And sometimes the delay is not about denial, it's about development. God is growing you, stretching you, and building the character you need to sustain the blessing that's coming your way. Some of you are in a season where it feels like nothing is happening. It feels like you're stuck, like you're waiting on God to show up, like time is slipping away. But let me encourage you. God is never late. He sees the bigger picture. He knows what's ahead. And when He makes you wait, it's not to harm you, it's to bless you in a way that is beyond what you could ever imagine. Don't get discouraged just because it's taking longer than you expected. Delay is not denial. And when the time is right, when the season is perfect, when everything is in alignment, God will release what He has promised. And when He does, you'll look back and realize that His timing was far better than anything you could have planned for yourself. So don't rush the process. Don't let impatience make you settle for less. Don't allow frustration to push you away from your faith. Stand firm, keep trusting, keep believing, and know this: when God moves, everything will fall into place exactly when it's supposed to. We've been taught to believe that strength means fighting, that it means pushing harder, holding on tighter, and refusing to give up. We think that if we just try a little more, push a little further, and carry a little longer, things will finally work out. But what if I told you that real strength is not in the fight, it's in the surrender? See, surrender is not weakness. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is not admitting defeat. Surrender is saying, God, I trust you more than I trust myself. It is recognizing that no matter how much we plan, no matter how hard we work, no matter how strong we think we are, we can never accomplish in our own power what God can do in a moment. Some of you have been struggling with something for a long time. You've been holding on so tight, trying to control things, trying to fix what's broken, trying to force a solution. And it's exhausting you. It's draining your joy. It's stealing your peace. But the more you try to fix it, the worse it seems to get. The more you try to hold on, the heavier it becomes. That's because some battles were never meant for you to fight alone. Some situations require you to step back and say, God, I don't have the answers, but I know you do. I don't see a way, but I know you have one. I don't know what to do, but I trust that you do. See, surrender is not the end of the battle. It's the beginning of victory. Because the moment you take your hands off of it, the moment you release it, the moment you stop trying to figure it out on your own, that's when God steps in. That's when things start to shift. That's when peace that doesn't make sense fills your heart. That's when strength rises up in you. Not the strength that comes from striving, but the strength that comes from trusting. But let me tell you something. Surrender is not easy. It goes against everything we've been taught. It requires faith. It requires humility. It requires letting go of our pride and admitting that we don't have it all under control. And that's hard because we like control. We like knowing what's next. We like feeling like we're in charge. But control is an illusion. The truth is, we were never meant to carry everything on our own. We were never meant to navigate life without God's guidance. And when we try to, we only end up frustrated, overwhelmed, and exhausted. Maybe you've been fighting for a breakthrough, but it seems like nothing is changing. Maybe you've been struggling in your relationships, in your finances, in your dreams, and it feels like you're stuck in the same place no matter how hard you try. Maybe you've been holding on to hurt, fear, or disappointment, unwilling to release it because you're afraid of what will happen if you do. But hear me. The moment you surrender is the moment things begin to shift. Because when you surrender, you invite God to take over. And when God takes over, He doesn't just fix the problem. He transforms you in the process. He gives you wisdom. He gives you clarity. He gives you peace in the middle of uncertainty. Think about a person drowning in deep water. The more they struggle, the more they sink. But the moment they stop fighting, the moment they surrender to the water and trust the process, they begin to float. That's what surrender does. It lifts you. It carries you. It takes the weight off your shoulders and places it in the hands of the one who can actually handle it. So stop wrestling with things that are out of your control. Stop exhausting yourself trying to force something that only God can make happen. Let go of the need to know all the answers. Let go of the fear that if you don't handle it, no one will. God is saying, if you would just surrender it to me, I will take care of it. If you would just let go, I will step in. If you would just trust me, I will show you that I have already worked it out. There is strength in surrender. There is power in releasing control. There is freedom in saying, God, I trust you. So whatever you're holding on to today, release it. Surrender it. Let God handle it. And watch how he moves in ways you never expected. There comes a time in life when frustration tries to take over. When no matter how much you pray, no matter how much you push, no matter how much you plan, things just don't seem to go your way. You work hard, but you don't see the results. You believe for better, but everything around you stays the same. You try to do the right thing, but you still face setbacks, delays, and disappointments. And in those moments, frustration rises up. It starts as a whisper. Why is this taking so long? Then it turns into doubt. Maybe it's never going to happen. And before you know it, you start questioning everything. God, did I hear you wrong? Am I wasting my time? Should I just give up? But let me tell you something. Frustration is the enemy's way of getting you to forfeit what God has already promised you. Because if the enemy can't take your destiny, he'll try to make you so discouraged that you walk away from it yourself. If he can't stop what God has for you, he'll try to stop you from believing for it. That's why in moments of frustration, you have to choose faith. You have to stand on what you know instead of how you feel. Because feelings will tell you to quit. Feelings will tell you that it's too hard, that it's taking too long, that you'll never get there. But faith says, I may not see it yet, but I know God is working. Faith says, I may not understand the process, but I trust his plan. Think about the children of Israel. God had promised them a land flowing with milk and honey, but when they came to the edge of the promised land, they got frustrated. They saw giants instead of victory. They saw obstacles instead of opportunities. And because of their frustration, they doubted God. They complained. They wanted to go back to what was familiar, even though what was familiar was slavery. And because they chose frustration over faith, an 11-day journey turned into 40 years in the wilderness. How many times do we do the same thing? We let frustration talk us out of the blessing. We let temporary difficulties convince us that the promise isn't worth it. We start walking in circles, delaying what God has already prepared for us. But hear me, frustration will make you forget what God has already done. It will make you focus so much on what you don't see that you lose sight of everything he has already brought you through. Think back over your life. How many times did you think you weren't going to make it, but somehow God came through? How many times did you think you were at a dead end, but he opened a door? How many times did you think you had lost, only to realize later that he was positioning you for something greater? If he did it before, he will do it again. If he made a way last time, he will make a way this time. If he has never failed you, why would he start now? Frustration tells you to panic. Faith tells you to praise. Frustration tells you to walk away. Faith tells you to press on. Frustration tells you to doubt. Faith tells you to trust. The enemy wants you to focus on how long it's taking. But faith says God's timing is perfect. The enemy wants you to focus on what hasn't happened yet. But faith says, if God said it, it's already done. The enemy wants you to feel like you're stuck But faith says, I am right where I need to be, and God is preparing me for what's next. So don't let frustration steal your faith. Don't let waiting make you weary. Don't let the process make you doubt the promise. Stand firm, keep believing, keep trusting, keep moving forward. Because when you choose faith over frustration, you position yourself for the breakthrough that's already on the way. There comes a time in life when you have to make a decision. Will you move forward in faith, or will you stay stuck in fear? Will you trust that God has greater things ahead, or will you let doubt and insecurity keep you trapped in a place you were never meant to stay? Too many people are living in the past, holding on to old failures, old disappointments, old wounds. They are standing at the edge of something new, something greater, something God ordained, but they won't move. Not because they don't have the ability, but because they don't have the confidence. Let me tell you something. If God has brought you this far, He has no intention of leaving you now. If He has opened the door, He has already given you everything you need to walk through it. But the enemy wants to keep you in a cycle of hesitation. He wants to keep whispering in your ear, what if you fail? What if you're not good enough? What if it doesn't work out? But let me ask you this. What if you succeed? What if you are more than enough? What if everything works out better than you ever imagined? See, confidence is not about having all the answers. It's not about knowing exactly how everything will unfold. Confidence is about knowing who goes before you. It's about knowing that if God is calling you to it, He has already prepared the way for you. When Moses died, Joshua was next in line to lead the people of Israel into the promised land. But God didn't just give him a position, He gave him a command: be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, for I am with you wherever you go. Why did God tell Joshua to be strong and courageous? Because He knew that stepping into the promise would require confidence. It would require faith. It would require moving forward even when things looked uncertain. Some of you are in that same position. You're standing at the edge of something new, something you've prayed for, something you've believed for. But fear is trying to hold you back. Doubt is telling you that you're not ready. The enemy is trying to make you second guess yourself. But hear me, if God brought you to this place, He will bring you through this place. If He planted the dream inside of you, He will give you everything you need to accomplish it. If He is calling you forward, He has already gone ahead of you to make a way. But you have to move. You can't stay where you are and expect to see the promise unfold. You can't wait until you feel ready, because the truth is you will never feel 100% ready. Confidence doesn't come before the step. It comes in the step. You don't wait to be confident to move forward. You move forward, and confidence follows. Some of you have been delaying your destiny because you're waiting for a sign, waiting for approval, waiting for the fear to go away. But what if the only thing standing between you and your breakthrough is your decision to step out? What if God is waiting on you to move before He releases the next level? You can't let insecurity hold you back. You can't let what other people think stop you. You can't let past failures make you afraid to try again. Because every step forward is a step toward purpose. Every time you refuse to let fear control you, you grow stronger. Every time you say, I don't know how, but I trust God, you get closer to the breakthrough He has prepared for you. So today I challenge you, stop hesitating. Stop second guessing. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Step out, move forward, walk in the confidence that God has already gone before you and He has already made a way. Because on the other side of your obedience is the blessing you've been waiting for. On the other side of your courage is the opportunity you've been praying for. On the other side of your confidence is the life that God has been preparing for you all along. So go forward, go boldly, and don't look back. There are moments in life when the battle feels too long, the struggle feels too great, and the obstacles seem too overwhelming. You pray, but the situation doesn't change. You push forward, but you feel resistance at every turn. You believe, but the breakthrough hasn't come yet. And in those moments, the enemy whispers, what if you don't make it? What if you lose? What if you're wasting your time? But let me remind you of something today. Your victory is already secured. The battle you are fighting is not yours alone. It belongs to the Lord. And when God fights for you, defeat is not an option. You may not see the victory yet, but that doesn't mean it's not already written. You may not feel like a winner right now, but feelings don't determine your destiny. God does. Think about David. Before he ever stepped onto the battlefield with Goliath, victory was already his. Not because he had the best weapons, not because he had the most experience, but because he had God on his side. When he picked up those 5 smooth stones, the outcome had already been decided. Goliath never stood a chance. The same is true for you. The enemy may come at you with everything he has. Attacks against your mind, your finances, your family, your dreams. But he cannot win because God has already declared victory over your life. Now, victory doesn't always come the way we expect. Sometimes the process is longer than we thought. Sometimes the battle is tougher than we anticipated. But hear me. Delay is not defeat. Just because the victory hasn't manifested yet doesn't mean it isn't coming. Some of you have been fighting a battle for years and you're getting tired. You're wondering if it's worth it. You're wondering if you should just accept things as they are. But I came to tell you, don't quit. You are too close. You have already come too far. And if you hold on, if you keep trusting, if you keep believing, you will see the victory that God has already prepared for you. Think about the walls of Jericho. God told Joshua and the Israelites to march around the city for 7 days. 7 days. Can you imagine how they must have felt? By the 3rd day, some of them were probably frustrated. By the 6th day, they were tired. But what if they had stopped on the 6th day? What if they had given up right before the breakthrough? They would have missed the victory that was already guaranteed. That's what the enemy wants you to do. He wants you to stop on day 6. He wants you to throw in the towel right before the walls fall. He wants you to give up right before the door opens. But God is saying, keep marching, keep trusting, keep believing. The walls are about to come down. See, the enemy fights you the hardest when he knows that your victory is near. He wants to wear you out. He wants to make you think that your prayers aren't working. But the fact that you are facing resistance is proof that you are on the verge of something great. If there were no victory ahead, the enemy wouldn't be attacking you so hard. So don't be discouraged by the battle, be encouraged by the promise. Because the Word of God says that you are more than a conqueror. It says that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. It says that the Lord will fight for you, and you only need to be still. Victory is not a possibility. It's a certainty. It's not a question of if, It's a question of when. And when God brings you out, when He turns things around, when He shows up in a way that only He can, you will look back and see that the battle was never yours to win. It was already won before it even began. So lift your head, stand firm, walk with confidence. Your victory is not just coming, it's already done. Through every struggle, every setback, every delay, and every challenge, one truth remains. God is in control. He has never lost a battle. He has never failed, and He is not about to start now. There will be moments in life when frustration rises, when fear creeps in, when doubt tries to take over. There will be times when the weight of the journey makes you question whether you should keep going. But in those moments, remember who you belong to. Remember who is fighting for you. Remember that victory is not something you have to earn. It's something that has already been given to you. Let go of the burden. Surrender the need to control every detail. Trust His timing, even when it doesn't make sense. Choose faith over frustration. Move forward in confidence, knowing that what God has for you is greater than anything standing against you. And when you feel weary, when the battle feels long, when doubt whispers in your ear, stand firm. Because the victory is already yours. The breakthrough is already on the way. The promise is already written. So don't look back. Don't hesitate. Don't second guess what God has placed in your heart. Walk boldly, believe fully, and trust completely. Because He who promised is faithful. And if God said it, it will come to pass. Victory is certain.